You look at all the projects we've done ground up where we took a piece of land and added value, or we took a building that existed and transformed it into something else. And I think that's where I've just kind of gravitated to. When people ask me, they say, "Oh, do you own that property?" My sort of flippant answer often is, "No, that's pretty presumptuous. I'm on the title of that property, but I'm just a steward of that property while I'm here on earth."
Welcome to Breaking Ground SA, a RECSA podcast where we dig into real estate deals, developments, and decision makers shaping San Antonio. I'm your host, Stephanie Reyes, President and CEO, joined by my co-host, local policy expert, Rob Killen. Let's break some ground. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Breaking Ground SA, coming to you from the IBC Bank studio. Today's episode is brought to you by IRC Capital Residential, the builder's capitalist. Our guest today is David Adelman, founder and principal of Area Real Estate. In this episode, we'll hear his secret sauce for redeveloping old buildings, his thoughts on the new city council, and his love for nightclubs. Thanks for tuning in. David, thanks for joining us on Breaking Ground SA.
Good afternoon.
David, thank you.
Okay, so this is where I want to start because I heard a story that you started your real estate career in high school.
It's a little crazy, but yes.
Okay, let's hear it.
So when I grew up, if I want to go to the movies and do something, I had to earn the money to go do that. So I had a lawn mowing and house painting and anything people would pay us to do, we would do to earn a little bit of money. And my dad, who's a solo practitioner attorney here in town, had about 4 or 5 rent houses, and you just kind of around town, and he would pay me and my buddy to go, do the mowing and paint the houses and whatever was needed. And so one day I asked him, "Hey, Dad, can I buy a house?" And he said, "Well, you have some college funds saved up that I've set aside. You're welcome to do that if you want. Just call Ruben Pena, the realtor that I use, and see if you can find something." And so I think it was around 1986 when I bought that first rental house. Ruben came by my house on a Saturday and picked me up. This predates cell phones, predates all the technology we know today. And so he picked me up and he showed up in a Lincoln Mark 7. It was a 2-door coupe. It was one of the finest automobiles I'd ever seen.
I need to see what this looks like.
Yeah, it was amazing. And he drove me around town, and we looked at about 5 houses, and we settled on a house on Prestwick down by McCreeless Mall, which I don't think McCreeless Mall is there anymore.
It's going back.
Yeah. And I assumed a mortgage and made some back payments, paid the realtor costs, paid the commissions, paid a title fee in closing, and put a for rent sign in the yard. And I was in the real estate business with my home phone number on there, and I rented that house out pretty regularly for probably 10 or 15 years.
That blows my mind. I have a 17-year-old, and I feel like if it's not, gaming, the last thing in the world he's thinking about right now is becoming a realtor. What motivated you? Like what?
Like I said, if in that era, I don't even want to say the right words. I don't want to say we weren't spoiled. It's just like if you wanted something, you had to earn the money to get it. Like that's what people did. And so, I had a little bit of drive, a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose. And I was ready to get going, which then led into my college experience at UT in Austin, where I actually got my real estate license and became an apartment locator, representing students and finding them West Campus and near campus housing. So I got my real estate license the summer after my sophomore year in college. And
wow.
Kept it going.
I'm impressed. Kids don't even know what they want until after switching majors 2 or 3 times. And here you are, 16 years old?
Yeah. I think I may have been 17 during the closing. I actually looked it up the other day. I was curious about it. And so I reached out to Robert Jordan over at Chicago Title and said, "Hey, man, can you pull the deed from this?" And it was 1986. It was in the fall of 1986. So I was a junior in high school.
Most kids just work at McDonald's.
Right?
Yeah. I worked at Church's Chicken in 1986. So, That's
A
great.
crazy story in order, the house really needed an exterior paint job. And our government teacher at the time, Mr. Cartwright, he ran this thing called Junior Statesmen of America. And we had a club. It was kind of like a government club. And I made a donation to the club, and everybody came out on a Saturday and helped me paint that house.
Oh, wow.
Literally. I mean, what a story. Like the whole government affairs and real estate and the rental property business, and there I was. So I was in real estate.
So were you like the big guy on campus because you already had a rental home at school?
No, on the contrary, I was the skinny, Jewish kid, working hard at school and working hard after school. So I think people were probably still more interested in the quarterback of the football team, which was not me.
Real estate developer, football quarterback, it's about the same.
Yeah.
And you have 2 girls, right? So when they hear this story, the dad was already in the real estate business in high school. I mean, what does that mean to them? What kind of standard you set?
I would say our girls had a little bit easier than I did.
Okay.
They were good. They've been great participants. I'll never forget, and Rob will appreciate this story. The very first zoning change I ever had to get was I was converting a single family residential house on Zarzamora Street to we had a long-term lease with a Jack in the Box, but we had to rezone and remove that house. And so Patty Radel was the city council person.
District 5.
And she said, I want you to host a meeting in your office building, which was next door. We had a medical office building that we had bought. And she said, I want you to host a public meeting and see what the neighborhood thinks. And so I said to my daughter at the time, who was like 8 years old, I need you to set up a lemonade stand in the lobby of the building, and we're going to get cookies and lemonade.
Nice touch.
And the neighbors are going to come out, and we're going to show them what our plans are for the property and how we're going to change it. And so my girls have grown up certainly helping in whatever way they could. You might say she was a human shield. I thought maybe they couldn't be too mean to me if you have an 8-year-old serving cookies and lemonade. So I tried to encourage them, and now she works at Cushman & Wakefield in Austin. She's an assistant property manager up there, and she's learning the business from the ground up.
Great. And so you have a pretty diverse portfolio, right? Mixed use, residential. How did you get into commercial? So having the first rental, what motivated you to go into commercial?
So when I started in the business, it was really residential. It was multifamily and student housing near campus. And about 4 years after college, my now wife, then fiance, who I had met in the 8th grade, we had decided, or she said, we really ought to move back to San Antonio. Our friends are moving back to San Antonio. San Antonio's home for both of us, and we should move back. And I was doing all this sort of campus, Central Austin rental property business, both in brokerage and in investment. And so when we came back to San Antonio, I thought, I probably should go in the commercial business. And I really didn't know much about it. I had a little bit of interaction with a couple office buildings up in Austin that I'd sort of cut my teeth with some management and leasing activities. And so I literally called every commercial real estate person that I could. I mean, I called Marty Winder, I called Mike Birnbaum, I called Walter Embry. I just called all these folks that
who's who,
and people I didn't know even in some cases. I just called them, and they would take a meeting, and I'd say, my name's David Adelman, and I want to be in real estate in San Antonio. Will you hire me? And they all took a nice and lovely pass, except for one. Ed Cross was running Trinity Asset Management. It was an office building shop inside the Embry umbrella. Back then, it was called Trinity Asset Management. And he said, well, I have a desk, and you can be a 50-50 commission split, and you can be a broker here. And so I said, great. And Robert Hunt actually was an asset manager of some properties that I got the leasing assignment on. And I just learned the business pretty quick. I had some good mentors along the way, and that sort of started to drive me in the direction of commercial real estate, which I did like better than the residential because it was sort of Monday through Friday, normal business hours kind of business. And the residential stuff, if you looked at realtors and the residential, it was a different sort of hours. And so I gravitated to that more commercial direction at that time. But
you're big on, redevelopment and historic preservation. like almost to an obsession, I feel, from the outside,
Yeah,
right?
not well.
Talk to me about that, the challenges that exist, and then let's pivot into some of the projects that you put together. I want to talk about Creamery. That's one of my favorite spots. So
Creamery's
let's
pretty
hear
cool.
it.
Sure. So early on, when I was in Austin in those days, I figured out pretty quickly that if I took a property, I was able to imagine what it could be. And so I had an eye for design to renovate those places and make them more attractive to the students, and I could raise the rents. So I could create value through those improvements. So I figured out pretty early in my career that I was a value add person. You could say developer, you could say redeveloper, you could say I'm an investor. I don't know what all the right words to say are, but it fundamentally boiled down to what I really got a lot of, what I felt like I was good at was adding value, creating value where there wasn't. So if you look at all the projects we've done ground up, where we took a piece of land and added value, or we took a building that existed and transformed it into something else. And I think that's where I've just kind of gravitated to, that I like that piece of the process. I enjoy the sort of rethinking and repositioning. The other thing that it matches is I just have a really strong natural inclination towards preservation and stewardship of the planet. So I think about sustainability a lot in what we do. And in the real estate business, from engineers and contractors and architects and developers, we affect the physical part of the earth in a big way. We can scrape a bunch of land, we can build a lot of things, and we use a lot of resources, whether it's trees or asphalt or concrete, et cetera. And I don't know, I just kind of tilt towards trying to do it in a sustainable way. And even so far as like when people ask me to say, oh, do you own that property? My sort of flippant answer often is, no, that's pretty presumptuous. I'm on the title of that property, but I'm just a steward of that property while I'm here on Earth. Like, this is Mother Earth. Like, she's a big planet. And to think that we own a piece of it is not quite right in my mind. I feel like we live in a community, we share resources, and we have an obligation to one another to do it in the right way and be least impactful on others.
So let me ask all the young developers who are listening, and look at what you've done. When you see a piece of property, what is it that jumps out at you and say, this is something I really should do a deep dive? It's sitting there, it's run down, no one's touched it. What is it that jumps out at you? And what are the things that would be a red flag in the same kind of development?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. For starters, to renovate a building, it has to have good bones. And that's harder to define what good bones are. I kind of say you know it when you see it. That's the tricky part. But some buildings you look at and you just go, get the wrecking ball. It's over.
So you can tell on the front end.
Yeah.
Because, like say you're going to renovate your home and you're like, okay, maybe it just needs this. Then once they start tearing stuff down, then the problems you didn't see,
that's
right? Does that happen often, or do you have a pretty good eye?
I would say we're kind of conflating two issues. So one is, and I'll be specific, because people say the unknowns is what the big problem, that it's hard to know. The irony, or the funny thing about that, is we have some amazing technology. We have some amazing technicians out there. There's a lot of people who might listen to this that work at engineering firms and other firms. The potential for forensics is there. We can literally see through walls with, penetrating radar. And we know if there's water leaks. We know if there's, crumbling, concrete or, that isn't proper. So actually you can do that diligence, versus a building that just has good bones is a building that was a once upon a time really has great bones. So like if you look at the Creamery as an example, it was an Atlee Bier's designed building originally. It was in an Art Deco era in the late 1920s. And it just had incredible bones, great scale and proportion, things that, there was a canvas to work with. And so I'd say it's a combination of those things. And sometimes a building's just too far gone, needs to go. I mean, I'll be the first one to say, hey, pull the demo permit.
There are buildings around town that people have tried walked away from, tried again. Someone else comes along, tries, walks away from. So, yeah, I guess that goes to the question of what are the red flags, right? Everyone wants to redevelop, and we won't name specific properties, but we all know what they are, right? We want to do this one, we want to do that one. And they get into it and they discover they can't. So for you, when you start looking at something, what is it that makes you say, can't do this one? It looks great. It seems to check off all the boxes, but here's that poison pill in there.
Yeah, some of it is, there's a number of things. Failed concrete is one of them. There's a point at which concrete's just no longer repairable. It just is crumbling. It's done. Another would be scale. So if a property is too large, like all the respect and all the applause to the Pearl developers and to Kit Goldsberry for that vision. I could never have done that, not under any circumstances. And obviously the capital structure would have been a part of that. But the how long it took to do that project, so scale, or it's too small. Sometimes if it's just too small, there's not enough scale because you're going to put a lot of resources and time into the process, but you don't have a big enough property. So I think those are some of the things. I look at windows a lot, like the size of the windows, because there's some buildings that just have no windows. And if the historic requirements don't allow you to put windows, you're economically dead. You just, people want natural light. They want to see in the window, see out of the window. And so that's a big factor.
Oh, thank you.
You talked about the environment. I love what you said. You seem really passionate about it, and then, it belongs to everyone. And I bring it up because if you haven't been following, CAP is back. This climate adaptation plan that, resurfaced after 4 years. Were you involved in the process at the beginning?
No.
Okay. Well, so there were, going back several years, the business community came out with a lot of concerns because when the plan came out and everyone is concerned about the environment, there were some things that were being proposed that would have made development more costly, more burdensome, those types of things. So how do you strike the balance of being, a steward of the environment, but also, things have to pencil to work, right?
That's you basically answered the question. It has to pencil. Like, it has to be economically viable. And if it's not, I'd say the one difference is whether you have a long view or a short view. So part of our business model has been a build to hold strategy. So we think that some of these assets, like wine, get better with time. And so if you look at some of our River North developments, they just continue to improve and rents continue to rise, even though we were early and pioneering. So we were putting sort of money into it. And I'd say the same thing on the stewardship piece. The returns that you see over time, over a longer period of time, probably do pay off on some of those investments of sustainability. And the biggest thing that I always say about sustainability is just reusing a building. And it's just less demolition, less going to the landfill, less new building materials coming onto the site. That by itself is a tremendous sustainability move, probably more valuable than just putting some solar panels up on your house.
Yeah. See, and that's great because right now they're forming these subcommittees, and one of those is energy and building. So, of course, RECSA and other members of the business community are going to put forward some technical experts so that they can have these really candid conversations about how great ideas might not be so great once you start putting some common sense and technical data in the mix. But, we need more people like you to sit around the table to be able to explain and give examples of what sustainability really means. It's not requiring solar panels on every building, right? Sounds great, but the reality is that's not really the route to go.
Right. And it's probably more cost effective just to build a solar farm out in the field. It's probably a whole lot less expensive than what they've sort of advocated for. If what you're trying to do is reduce carbon emissions, if that's your number one goal. My number one goal literally is as I call it, I'm trying to narrow people's triangles where you work, where you live, and where you recreate. And the closer those three things are, I think the better off for not only the planet, but for your mental health. Like if you live an hour from work and you commute, you burn up a lot of hydrocarbons just getting to and from work. You probably burn up a lot of mental health just waiting in traffic and wondering why people aren't driving better and faster. And then you you've just lost daylight for fun. So my commute is, I live maybe a mile from my office, and most of where we kind of hang out and go out to dinner and see friends is nearby. So we don't move around a whole lot, but we do a lot.
Another one of my favorite projects is St. Paul Square. Can you talk about that one in 1902 and how you guys, renovated the Sunset Station, which is a cool spot too?
So we're kind of in the line of, folks taking our shot at the title, and we're in the middle of it. And we've had it's been a little bit tough here recently. So when we had the good opportunity to purchase it, I was able to partner up with Don Thomas and Michael Jerzen and their group, and so we're partners in the thing. And we had when COVID hit, we had an operator at what you would call Sunset Station, the original depot, and it was the RK Group. And RK Group is an amazing catering convention operator. I mean, they do amazing work, and their food is incredible. But what they were doing with the facility was just, corporate events. You maybe had wedding receptions on a Saturday night, and luncheons and that type of thing.
Underutilized,
I would say. So they vacated it during COVID because it couldn't use the facility at all. Obviously, the governor's orders, it shut down. You can't congregate people. And so I gathered my partners and I said, guys, I have always wanted to build and own a nightclub. And is there any better building to have a nightclub in than this beautiful train station? So short version of a long story is one of my associates had a relationship with the guys that had the only real nightclub in San Antonio at the time, which was out on 1604 called the Hotel. And so I called him up, and I knew him, and I said, his name is Maurice Said. And I said, Maurice, I want to show you something. I have an idea. Just want to show you. And he'll tell the story if you ever get to talk to him, and he tells you the story. He says, literally, you told us about it. We weren't thinking much about it. We walked in, and he goes, the hair on my arm stood up. I looked at this space and said, oh, my God. And these guys are from Monterrey, Mexico. So they're in that sort of world where nightclubbing is a thing, in Mexico and a lot of in Europe and other places where it's more common than in the U.S. So anyway, they bought into the vision, and we took our shot. So it's there, and it's doing well. And in fact, we're meeting next week. They want to do a renovation and upgrade to it. So we're still rolling.
So did you frequent a lot of nightclubs? Is that why you wanted to open one up?
That is true, yes. I love music. I love loud music. And so, yes, I've been to many a nightclub, not in San Antonio. In fact, speaking of young, I took my girls to nightclubs starting when they were about 15. We did some travel, and they've been in some nightclubs, and they like it too. So the apple hadn't fallen too far from the tree.
So there's a future for entertainment in downtown San Antonio.
I think so. We just opened a comedy club in the basement at the Maverick, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's called the Riot Comedy Club. They're from Houston.
No, yes. I need to go there.
I'm so excited about it. It's really cool. So if you have a chance.
So it's like stand-up acts?
Yeah. They're 7 nights a week. They do about 3 shows a night. Have a little bit of open mic here and there, but and it just had a great call the other day. So Gabriel Iglesias, who's a really famous comedian, Mr. Fluffy. Well, he apparently has moved to New Braunfels.
Really?
He came down. He's done a couple sets, and so the manager sent me a text, said, "Hey, Gabriel's coming in tonight." So I went in, and it was unbelievable. And he told his whole story, and he talked about comedy in San Antonio, and he said, "This little club is amazing, and these local comedians are coming up." He says, I'm going to work hard to make sure this place is a success. And he was saying this on stage. He didn't know I was sitting out there. And it's really great. But it's just another little piece of the lifestyle and entertainment opportunity we have in downtown. So.
That's really cool. Let's pivot a little bit. So you are one of the things that I actually really admire about you. I think David Adelman, authentic, right? You say what you mean. You do what you say. And a few years ago, I wanted to talk about this. And you're welcome to say as much or as little as you like.
Uh-oh.
But a few years ago, you kind of spearheaded an effort, you didn't do it alone, of trying to get all of the advocacy organizations and business community to kind of rally together, right?
Yeah.
What prompted that effort? And how do you feel about how it went?
So what prompted it was frustration. I always feel like, we're more powerful together than we are independent. And can't remember exactly what prompted it. I'd have to think about it. But I felt like what we needed was more people rowing together in the same direction, and that what we do by supporting so many organizations, and I was pretty specific about saying the multiple chambers, and that we all give money. Some of us give money to an individual chamber more than the others, but we support one but not the other. Or some of us, if you had, let's say you had $1,000 to sprinkle and you gave $300 each to 3 chambers, none of them have the full resource that they need. And so we're sort of liquidating our power as a business community. And I felt like our business community also was fractured in terms of there wasn't clarity about what we should be doing and things we should work hard for. And so I thought if we could join forces together, that we might be more effective as a business community. So, and I didn't really know kind of what the expected outcome was, but I thought if we can bring these leaders together and get people talking, maybe something good will come out of it, and maybe there'll be more coordination. And even if it's just saying I'm in this lane and I'm in this lane and I'm in this lane, as long as we're moving this community forward, I felt like that's where I would like it to be. You asked, like, what were the results? Probably not as powerful as we would have liked. However, I know that some things good have come out of it. And so perhaps it did help a little.
I'll say this, I'll put my chamber hat on and say that it didn't create a new organization, didn't create anything like that, but it helped the dialogue, right? It brought a lot of people into one room who, again, operate, I wouldn't say in silos, because I think there's a lot of coordination among the business organizations. We have a group called Business Coalition, meets every month, and we like to align, but bringing in business leaders as well as chamber leaders and CEOs of various organizations. And it helped the dialogues that we were having regularly. I can say for Metro, Greater,
Hispanic,
South Texas Business Partnership.
RECSA.
Well, the 4 chambers, the 4
chambers.
bigger chambers now meet regularly with our chairs and our CEOs. But then I think from the RECSA perspective and the other business and development organizations, there is a higher level of dialogue. So I think we want to compliment you for really raising that and having someone from the development industry as kind of the face of let's all come together and work together. Really, really helpful.
Good. I'm glad. I mean, I would have, for instance, the Spurs Prop A and Prop B, which was kind of our most recent thing where the business community really needed to rally hard to help those to pass, because to me, it was still too narrow at 53 to 47. I operated on that deal just uncomfortably at all times. Like, we have to push harder. We have to work harder. And that's kind of the example of we need to be way ahead of these things. And rather than being reactive to what comes out of like city council or the county, we need to be proactive. We need to drive the future of our city. The country is changing. It is changing in so many ways. It's changing due to technology, AI, racial profiles, immigration profiles. I mean, you could just go on and on. The country is changing. And is our community going to be a leader, or are we going to be a follower? And again, it was in hopes to try to drive the conversation towards let's be a leader. Let's drive our community to be the city we hope and expect it to be.
I think it added value. Now, are you ready to run for office? Sounds like you've got some great ideas.
My problem, and anybody that knows me, I would absolutely not fit into a democracy. Every time I go to a council meeting or any kind of public meeting and I watch how people have to listen to everybody, I just think, oh my God, how do they do it? How do they sit here and listen to that? I struggle. I'm way too type A and way too conclusionary, and I don't want to have all that public meeting stuff. So a hard answer, no. Hard no.
Put you down as a maybe.
Maybe. I heard maybe. So, okay, well, how important is policy to development?
Huge. It's almost, it's the difference between whether or not we can run successful businesses or not. I mean, if you look at California as an example, I mean, they've got so much regulation, 3, 4, 5 years to get entitlements to do a project. And then they go, we have an affordable housing crisis. And you go, duh, you've created that through your regulatory environment. Therefore, why are you surprised?
We have a new city council.
Yes.
I think a lot are still getting familiar with our industry and what we're doing and the value and the need to engage us to have these conversations. Where do you see us going with our new city council? Are we going in a good positive direction, or do you think more has to be done, and how can we engage towards that effort?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd love to hear Rob's feeling. We've watched this thing for 20 years, and it ebbs and flows. It moves pro-business, anti-business, pro-neighborhood, anti-neighborhood, downtown, this, that, and the other. It moves around a lot. Partially, we had a 2-year terms, and that created a lot of transition from time to time. So the council today, well, it's interesting. I actually think we've moved into more of a parliamentarian system. It's all about getting 6 votes, more so than it ever was. There's no strong leadership on that council. You have no mayoral leadership. The mayor is clearly not driving the conversation right now. She's seems unable to develop coalitions. Even when Misty Spears flipped her vote at the last minute on moving the election, which I had no one way or the other, it wasn't a policy issue that mattered to me, and quite frankly, but it was interesting how that flipped and why it flipped, and so it's all about getting 6 votes. So you're in the coalition building mode. What I really hope is that the coalitions don't form and be absolute, meaning you just need reasonable-minded people to make reasonable decisions based on proper information.
Yeah. And
that is hard to accomplish. The proper information part, when you rush things and you don't have all the information. So what I ask every policymaker when I talk to them is I say, if I could, if you could do one thing for me, it's when you're going to consider a policy that you reach out within the business community to those experts that have a reputation, that are there for the community good, and make sure you ask them, take the time to inquire, how will this impact your business? How will this impact the industry? To try to understand the bigger picture. And don't just go on whether it be social policy or fiscal policy, because, make sure you do your diligence. That's what I always ask for. And this council seems like there's some people on there doing their diligence.
There are.
That's what we do with real estate councils. We meet certainly with newly elected members, but even with the ones that have been there, we remind them on a regular basis, look, we have technical experts. You want an engineer, you want a developer, you want an architect, banker, CPA, whatever it is, we've got it at RECSA. If you need to understand the development process, we've got such a deep bench of folks that not only know about this stuff, but really want to share. And that goes to utilities and all the other kinds of policymaking things. So we really rely heavily on all the volunteers. You do a lot of volunteer work in the community. RECSA, you've spoken at many of the events, Urban Land Institute, and so many other things where you're always giving back. We have so many folks in the industry that want to be that resource to help guide that public discussion, folks who serve on commissions and advisory boards and task force. And I think, quite frankly, you asked my opinion, I'm actually an optimist. I look at city council and I look at all the fights, all of the 5-6 votes, 7-4 votes, 10-1 votes, all of those kind of contentious votes. And every time I look at that, I was talking to someone in my office the other day, and I asked him, I said, what have been the votes since the new council was elected in June, July, on all of our zoning cases? What has the vote been? 11-0, right? The business of development, the business of government, going in down, getting a permit, getting a plat approved, all of that continues to work the way it has always worked because I think we have good staff at the city and other levels of government. So things continue to work. But on the big policy issues, you're right. You need the council to educate themselves and to reach out to the community and ask the right people the right questions. And I think you've done a great job in educating council members with what you've done.
You have.
Yeah. And that's why, by the way, I'm a big supporter of RECSA. I think industries need their association. They need their technical experts to come together and to be respected and to be a force for good. And so I feel like RECSA's there. I feel like RECSA has a good reputation within the policymaker and the public sector community. And so hopefully that continues to be the case and we continue to support the organization.
Yes. Thank you for that support, by the way. And, council members, to their credit, there are many on council that reach out and say, hey, Steph, I've got this great policy idea. Can you get a room full of your members so we can kind of talk through cost implications, timing, that kind of thing. That's what we need. That's exactly what you're saying. Some of them do that. I really want all of them to do that, but maybe they'll come around.
That's
right?
good governance. That's good governance. If those folks on council are willing to do that, and I know the city staff often is, that's good governance. That's what we as community, we are government, and I always say people are confused, like it's not an us and them. It's they work for us. To be clear, we decided as a citizenry that we were going to elect the government to run our common areas, basically, and our shared resources. And we do that, and we expect them to operate properly and work for the best interest of the widest variety of constituents they can. Sometimes those constituents that are at odds. Sometimes somebody wants to have an Airbnb and have a bunch of parties in their property, and the next door neighbor just wants to go to sleep at 10 so they can get to work in the next day and have a normal day.
That's Rob.
That's right. No, I go to bed at 9. Let's be
right.
clear. I go to bed at 9.
So, RECSA does a lot of great things. I'm really proud to lead the organization, but it's because of guys like you, people like you. But another thing that we do is we get the next generation of industry leaders ready to go. And you were part of our LDP program. What did it do for you?
Believe it or not, I never went through it.
You did not go through our
No,
LDP
but I've spoken many, many times, and I always offered to help with each class whenever possible. And so lately I've been leading a walking tour downtown and showing them new developments and things and talking through the process of development and so forth.
How did you never go through our program?
I don't know. I don't know what I can't say for
We
sure.
should call you an honorary class member then.
There you
Very,
go.
very
That's
embarrassing
what we're
for you.
going to do.
There you go.
Yes.
We could still get you into the next
No,
class.
it's my fault, not yours. It's me, not you.
So we like to end our podcast with a fun rapid fire.
Oh, boy.
Are you ready?
Never.
Favorite place for a breakfast taco?
Oh, that's almost impossible, but Cazadores at Ritterman and Harry Wurzbach
Okay.
would go to.
Interesting.
Coffee meetings or sidewalks?
Well, lately I try to go to tenants of ours, so I'll go to Commonwealth at Jones and Broadway.
Okay. One thing about you that would surprise people?
That I love to go to nightclubs and stuff. That I went to Steve Aoki the other night and didn't get home till 3:30 on a work night, on a school night.
That's a
Rob
fun
was probably
night.
just getting
That's
up.
why I get up. It's 3:30.
He was probably just waking up to go work out, and I was coming in.
Wow, that is interesting to learn about you. Favorite building in San Antonio?
Ooh. I can't pick one of our own because it's like you can't pick a favorite child. So I'm going to go with, oh, man, this is hard. Favorite building in San Antonio. How about,
It can be one of your
how
own.
about the Methodist Hospital because I was born there? That probably doesn't count.
Okay, I guess. We'll take it.
Cop out.
Where do you take out-of-towners?
For sure they have to see the museum reach of the Riverwalk. That I love to take them now to our like Elsewhere Bar and Garden right there
Love that
across
place.
from the museum. Big fan of the Botanical Gardens, so occasionally we'll always try to make that a stop. It's mainly food. I mean, just all the food destinations, and hard to pick a favorite. Someone sent me a top 50 restaurants the other day, and I was like, it's pretty good, but there's more.
Yeah. Okay, last one. What excites you about San Antonio's future?
San Antonio is a very large, small town. And I just think it's a place where we can continue to attract and grow our own talent. People can participate. And like if you were in Dallas or you were in Atlanta, I bet it would be hard to move the needle on the trajectory of one of those cities for a combination of reasons, the scale, the size, the big corporate citizenry. But here, like people can get involved and engage and actually make a difference. And so what excites me is I think that's where the next generation of young people, they're much more in tune with like making their community better. And this is a place where that can happen. And so I think it's just an awesome place that has a great, bright future.
This was fun. This was a lot of fun. You are welcome to come back anytime you want. There's so many more projects we could talk about of yours and initiatives that you're a part of. So I hope you'll come back to the IBC studio next time. We'll talk about one of your next big projects. Let's close with that. What's next? What are you working on?
Ooh. We are building, we just broke ground. We're building 200 units in Southtown, just in between two railroad tracks and a recycle yard on Probant. And we're going to build a really cool restaurant. I have a plan for that restaurant. The tenant who's going to occupy it doesn't even know it yet, but we're going to get them. We're designing it with them in mind. And I was driving down Lone Star Boulevard the other day, and Thad Rutherford and the South Star team, incredible vision and biting a big chunk. And I looked over across the railroad tracks and I could see our project going up. It's actually going to change that little piece of property in order to help connect.
So you're right across the street.
Yeah, Southtown. And so it's starting to see how Southtown can connect to Lone Star, and Lone Star can be a tremendous canvas for those folks and to watch that happen. So I think we're kind of playing a little part in that.
You have a name
evolution.
for the new project yet?
We're calling it River Camp Lofts. We're just kind of playing off the river, and we have some fun amenities that we think are a part of that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
You are amazing. You're a friend, and we look forward to seeing you again in the IBC Bank studio for another episode of Breaking Ground SA. This episode was brought to you by IRC Capital Residential LLT. So thanks so much, David. We'll see you later.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.
Rob.
Thank you for listening.